So, a few months ago, I came across a trailer for a new film to be released in 2022 called Moonfall. There are a couple of trailers out now for this. You can go take a look at those now if you haven't already. That way you'll know what I'm referencing here in this presentation. Then, recently, someone sent me a message inquiring about it. And I remember, yes, I did want to talk about that, and so here we are. If you haven't already, I would go watch those now before I get into it, so that you can get the feeling for what I'm about to discuss. They are linked in the description box below. This got my blood pumping. See, folks, they are paying attention. Isn't it cute when they put out a film based on a conspiracy theory, I guess most people would call it? It is actually not. It's a legend. There are old stories from old civilizations that talk about what the moon is. Just looking at the two different versions of the trailer, I saw a whole lot within those few minutes. You know, if I had a multi-million-dollar budget to make a film, I would throw in all types of theories, prophecies, and legends and myths. I'm talking epic. Trying to spread awareness through a movie, oh yeah. So keep that in mind with this. It's not always set up by some unknown entity trying to drip feed us information. Sometimes these people who make films just happen to be interested in the same things we are. So I want to break this down the best I can, because this is something that is going to be discussed more and more until this film is released. It may be a film that is more sensational than it needs to be, but the truth lies beneath the surface. So the first thing I want to express about all of this is, and this is something that I dare anyone to try and dispute with science, and that is that the moon was put there. Now that statement alone should wake a lot of people up. Now raise your hand if you think the moon is a naturally formed object, an accident, a freak occurrence that just happens to be with the planet that is inhabited, that just happens to almost perfectly eclipse the sun, that just happens to only show one side at all times, 24 hours, 7 days a week. It just happens to affect our tides. It just happens to affect biological cycles. It just happens to affect hormone release. Now, of course, it's easy to say that God put it there by design, and I believe that to be true. But I think there is a little more to it than that, as to the details of how and when the moon took form, or was constructed or placed. While we're on the subject, here are a few biblical verses that talk about what the moon is. Genesis chapter 1, 16 through 18. God made the two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He made the stars also. God placed them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth, and to govern the day and the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. Now this verse I know most people think is referring to the sun and the moon, but really, the moon doesn't emit its own light. In other words, without the sun, it wouldn't light up. I just had a theory maybe this verse is referring to the sun and a binary star that would burn a light that is invisible to us for some reason, the governor of the dark. But given the context, it is probably the moon. Anyway, just a thought I had. In Jeremiah 31:35 it reads, Thus says the Lord, who gives the sun for light by day, and the fixed order of the moon and the stars for light by night, who stirs up the sea so that its waves roar. The Lord of hosts is his name. In Psalm 104:19 it reads, He made the moon for the seasons. The sun knows the place of its setting. The sun and moon, two governing bodies, and that's another thing. The relationship between the sun and the moon is an accident. You know, it's funny. There is so much interest in Planet X, but if one of these two bodies, if the moon were to move away from or get closer to the Earth, not even by that much, it would be apocalyptic. Forget about Planet X at that point. And you have to hope Planet X or that binary star doesn't cause the moon to change position. But let's get to this film. So writer, director, producer Roland Emmerich, when you make movies like 10,000 BC, Stargate, Independence Day, The Day After Tomorrow, 2012, Godzilla, you most likely are doing some pretty deep diving into those subject matters. Subject matters he was already into at a young age back in Germany. So I'm sure he's very up to date concerning the theories surrounding the moon. The leading cast will be Halle Berry, Patrick Wilson, John Bradley, and Donald Sutherland, along with Michael Pena. Now, the first trailer, of course, is a teaser, so most of the same elements are in the second trailer, accompanied with more dialogue to give us a better sense of what's happening. So, in the second trailer, it opens up with a space shuttle launch, specifically the Apollo 11 launch, as Donald Sutherland tells a story about the moon landing on July 20th, 1969. Upon that landing, Sutherland says that we were taught that they lost communication with Houston for 2 minutes. Actually, the lost communication with Houston was a lot, on and off as they tried to land the module, and then the moment of silence when they left the moon and reached the far side of the moon out of the communication zone. So yeah, there were several moments of broken communication. However, Sutherland says that it wasn't true, and that it was a cover to hide something they had discovered. So there are two spacecraft shown here. One looks almost exactly like the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft. And then there is the Space Shuttle, which hasn't been used since 2011. So they are probably going to have a few scenes on the Apollo 11 mission. Or they may end up using this shuttle for this last-ditch effort to fight the moon. The SpaceX Dragon is a cargo ship that I believe is capable of a moon mission, although I think SpaceX is working on another rocket for that. Now, we have what appears to be alien technology, perhaps a weapon. This reminds me of the alien technology used on the spacecraft in the movie Man of Steel. So we already know that they are going there with the aliens. What type of aliens they'll pick for this one will be interesting. I know the aliens that were picked for Independence Day are pretty unique when it comes to that topic. So it will be interesting to see what race of being they have in place here. So, of course, now that the public knows that the moon is moving towards Earth, we have the breakdown of society and the riots, the looting, and other forms of madness. Now, the only reason I can think of that they would be rolling the space shuttle down the middle of a demolished neighborhood is probably because all the other spacecraft they sent to the moon to handle the problem failed. and now they are left with no choice but to move the space shuttle into position. Or could it be a scene of it landing back to Earth? Which means mission accomplished and the moon didn't hit the Earth after all. Nah, they showed a moon crashing into the Earth, and that's what I expect to see in the movie. Tsunamis, earthquakes, water tornadoes. I'm sure they are going to have every natural disaster possible in this movie, especially fireballs from moon debris. As soon as this guy said, "Stay awake," my heart started pounding. I thought he was going to finish my closing statement. Stay awake, stay aware, stay safe. He's bald with a beard, just like me. This guy's my favorite character now. They already sold me on this movie anyway. Of course, we have the religious leader. I believe this is played by Adam LeBlanc. This was the NASA Vehicle Assembly Building. Now, Sutherland mentions that this planet has suffered already 5 extinctions. And the 5 mass extinctions he's referring to are the Ordovician mass extinction, the Devonian mass extinction, the Permian mass extinction, the Triassic-Jurassic mass extinction, and the Cretaceous-Tertiary mass extinction. And we can talk about those events in another presentation. Now, I have to say, they did a pretty good job with rendering the inside of the hollow moon, a gigantic machine or spacecraft. Now, the question is, if God was responsible for placing the moon, would it need to be some type of spacecraft? And if so, would the inner workings be less mechanical, less artificial? A craft constructed by angels. What would that look like? Who knows? This may be spot on, because other angelic craft have that description of that Dyson sphere or gyrosphere like cage surrounding a central light source or energy, right? So it does make you think. Spaceship moon theory. The spaceship moon theory, also known as the Vossen-Sherbakov theory, is a hypothesis that claims the Earth's moon may actually be an alien spacecraft. The hypothesis was put forth by 2 members of the then Soviet Academy of Sciences, Michael Vossen and Alexander Sherbakov, in a July 1970 article entitled, "Is the Moon the Creation of Alien Intelligence?" Vossen and Sherbakov's thesis was that the moon is a hollowed-out planetoid created by unknown beings with technology far superior to any on Earth. Huge machines would have been used to melt rock and form large cavities within the moon, with the resulting molten lava spewing out onto the moon's surface. The moon would therefore consist of a hull-like inner shell and an outer shell made from metallic rocky slag. For reasons unknown, the spaceship moon was then placed into orbit around the Earth. The hypothesis is that craters on the lunar surface from small impacts make cup-shaped craters where, as in the larger impacts, the meteor is drilling through the surface, which is 5 miles deep, into a 20-mile thick hull or shell, beyond which is a void, which might contain an atmosphere. Isn't it amazing? Yet again, we have a conspiracy theory that didn't come from a conspiracy theorist, but from the people who make up the scientists who study the moon. Zulu mythology about the moon. Zulu shaman Credo Mutwa said that Zulu legends believe the moon to be hollow and the home of the python of Hitari, or as David Icke calls them, the reptilians, a race of intelligent extraterrestrials. The legend states the moon was brought here hundreds of generations ago by 2 brothers Wawan and Manku, who were the leaders of these reptilian extraterrestrials. David Icke has a book he published some time ago called Human Race Get Off Your Knees, The Lion Sleeps No More, where he gets into this topic. In any event, I guess the future holds the truth. We'll have to find out more when the time comes. That's all for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this little time out to review this upcoming film of interest. Everyone be sure to visit woodwardentertainment.com and the Woodward Entertainment store. You can follow me on Instagram at jwoodward. And until next time, brothers and sisters, stay awake, stay aware, stay safe. And I'll talk to you all soon.